but I just wanted to give you all a little bit of background of what bringing us here together. And all of you are familiar with the organization, the African Leadership Group. And and one of the initiatives we had as an organization is called Breaking Barriers, Building Bridges between the African Immigrant Community and the Black community. This has been going on since 2019. I think that's when we had the first gathering. And last year, part of our Leadership Africa program, for graduation, we had 4 groups. And each group, part of their graduation requirement, they had to come up with a project that's dear to their heart or to the community, to do some research and do a presentation around it. So we had a group that picked homelessness in the community. We had a group that picked lack of voter participation from our community. We had a group that picked mental health. And we had a group that picked breaking barriers and building bridges. So some of those members in that group will be joining us here shortly. Now, and that group, I was part of that group. We did surveys. We had a survey, and on the survey, we asked 5 questions. One of the first question was, how do you identify yourself? And the answer you had was African American, Black, African immigrant, others. And the other question is, where do you get your knowledge about African American or African immigrant? Okay. And one of the other questions was, what is your wish for the 2 communities? And we survey close to 1,000 people. We went to the Black Art Festival for 3 days. We surveyed a lot of people from the Black community. The findings were amazing. In a sense, starting with me, I have 3 daughters. So when I did the survey, obviously, I answered the first question. I identified myself as African immigrant. But my own kids, they identify themselves as Black. It was just a big aha moment, right? So, but one of the things, also another finding, we surveyed some people from Jamaica and from the island. They were very offended. They were offended in the sense where they told me, we are not African immigrant, we are not African American, we don't identify as Black. When you guys were doing this survey, you did not think about us. They identified as Afro-Caribbean. Okay? So when you talk to somebody from Australia that is a Black man, they might identify themselves differently. So, but one thing that after close to 1,000 survey, one thing that most of the people had in common answering the question was, what are your wishes for the 2 communities? Everybody answered that the 2 communities coming together. Everybody wanted that. It was very interesting also when we asked the question is, where did you get your knowledge about the African immigrant, about the African? It was interesting. Some of them say TV. Most people say media. Few African Americans say, I travel to Africa. For African, most of the African immigrant, it was more like what they saw on TV. So, which was very interesting. So after that, we pulled together a big community gathering. Now we brought in leaders from the Black community and leaders from the African immigrant community. And there was about, Dr. Malcolm, you were there, there was about at least over 60 people at the Colorado Early College.
Right.
So now what we did is, okay, we identified the problem. We wanted to bring the community to bring us the solution. It was interesting. And we had a recording, so a lot of ideas came out of that. that thing that we needed to do as community to really bring the two communities together. One of the solution was to show up at each other's event, because that's one of the asks. You know, the best way we can work together is by knowing each other and spending time together. So that's something we act on. We established an amazing partnership with the Black Art Festival. I don't know if all of you are familiar with the Black Art Festival. Mm-hmm. It's a 3 days ceremony, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Now, what the Black Art Festival organizer did for the Friday, which is the first day, they gave it to us as African Immigrant Community. So we put together event. Last year we did community healing and drumming, and bringing also both communities healing. So the Black Art Festival, they did their part, giving us that entire day as African immigrant to put whatever you want to put together. What we did at the African Leadership Group is part of our Leadership Africa program, which we are having the second cohort. The first cohort, there were 23 people, but there were only 3 African American. But one of the things we said, we're going to be more intentional on the second cohort. We'll invite more African American to take part of the class instead of just the vast majority being African immigrant. So this second cohort, we had about 30 people in the class. Half is African American, half is African immigrant. So Dr. Malcolm is taking that class, and Professor is in that class. What's happening there is amazing, because it's a lot of crying, a lot of healing that's happening and Dr. Malcolm will tell you more what it means to him as a Black American being in the mix of African immigrants. So he will. So we made a lot of progress bringing the two communities together. Now, also for African Impact, which is the yearly fundraising, so the Black community is very involved, even though it's an African Impact event, but the Black community is very involved in it. So we made a lot of progress when it comes to creating collaboration and partnership between the two communities. So now, with this Breaking Barrier initiative, we, because Leadership Africa, it's funded. We got a foundation that give us money. We also share with the funder the initiative to bring the two communities together. They were very, very impressed and love it. They also funded that work. They said, like, we're going to give you this much money to really further this because we feel like it's extremely important. So, and part of the requirement was to really continue the work, to continue the dialogue. So the reason of this gathering is now the Breaking Barrier concept, we build it into the Leadership Africa curriculum. It's part of the curriculum now. When they get together and go through this 9-month leadership program, part of it is breaking barriers and bringing the two communities with activities and conversation. And Moses is smiling because he's part of the committee that started the work. So now, on November 12th, which is next Leadership Africa, and I hope all of you can join. So there's a session now, a workshop on breaking barriers. So we invited Brother Jeff. I don't know if all of you know him. If you don't, you will know him. He's a fearless leader from the Black community that have a talk show, very famous. So he's going to be doing a workshop on breaking barriers. He's going to be unpacking a lot of things. No, but you guys don't want to miss it. I'm just letting you know. So, but I know you're traveling, so I'm trying to make you feel bad.
North Carolina, I know, I am feeling bad.
So now, part of that, so we have our dear Chantel from South Africa. So she's going to be doing a poem on breaking barriers. I did share the video she did during African Impact in the group. I don't know if you did get a chance to watch it. So she's now writing a poem on breaking barrier, and she will be doing the opening of the November 12th with that poem. Now, the reason of this gathering, we needed to have that poem to represent both communities. We did not want her to just take the idea from Papa and just write. We want it to be a representation from both communities. However we feel, whatever we want, we want to share it with her, and she will put something together that we all have our input. That is the main. You can have. Thank you. Yes, you can have. So she can get all those input from us. How we just want it to be a poem that reflects the real story and a testimony from all of us. So we all, when we hear it, we can all relate. So that's pretty much the reason of this gathering and the journey of breaking barriers and building bridges. So if there's no question, I'm going to transition to introduction, and definitely I want to start with my fearless committee members that we've been working over the last 2 years on this initiative. Now, and when you introduce yourself, I want you just to tell your name, where you're from, and what is your wish? What is your wish for the Black community? And what is your wish for the African immigrant community? Your name, where you're from, and your wish for the Black community and the African immigrant community. But I would like to start with Moses and Latorel, since they've been on this journey with me, to just share a little bit their perspective. Moses, thank you for being here. We'll start with you, Moses.
Okay, my name is Moses Nsubuga. I'm from Uganda. I've been living in Denver for about 3 years now. So one of my main desire for this community through breaking barriers is to see us economically empowered through like different initiatives, from the young people, the youth, all the way to the people who are experienced and have been here for a long time. And I think we're lacking sometimes in that stuff. So I hope that's my main.
Could you repeat it again?
To have like empowerment throughout all stakeholders in our community, you know, the older and especially the youth, because I feel like the youth are really neglected, you know, and we look so much into entertainment, but we don't look at the student organizations, and because I feel like that's where we're at. So if we could have the student organizations impacting as they grow, I think we'll have a big umbrella, you know, in our community.
So Moses, let me ask this follow-up. As somebody that's been involved in the Breaking Barrier Initiative, part of Leadership Africa, could you share with people here how it has what was your learning, your observation, your going through this process?
Yeah, and I'm still learning, but the initiative really highlighted some of the things that we don't see, you know, and how we talk, but we're affecting each other. So that group really highlighted some of the problems, and for me it was good to say, okay, let's start the conversation instead of indirectly hurting each other. So that's what for me it did for me, and the experience to be open-minded when I'm actually doing things. So that's one of the things. And one thing I just forgot is, because I'm going through that, and I hope this initiative can help out in our community, the Ugandan community, because again, we have the younger people and the older generation, but we having barriers that we actually currently trying to see how we could revive our community, and it's tough, you know, because people are pulling each other back and left because of different ideas and stuff. So maybe this group could really help, and then because we have a meeting on October 30th.
Okay.
So I don't know how this group is gonna help, but that's one of the other things. Besides African Americans, even the African communities, would like to see something change. Yep.
Very good. Well, thank you for all your work on this initiative. So, Latrell is somebody that breathes and drinks this initiative, and thank you so much. And I got to share with you the story. For the longest time, as the founder of this organization, everybody that got involved in the organization was through me. The one that reaching out, she's the first person that get involved in the organization, and I didn't know her. So for a month, I go like, she's here spying on us. They're like, who are you? And the first Leadership Africa, she's the first African American that really applied for it. I go like, where did she come from? Where did she know about this? So maybe she can share about, how you learned. But she's been definitely a fresh air, and thank you so much for your involvement.
Thank you, thank you. Well, the way that I originally became involved with the leadership program, I just received an email, and you go to these things and you get on email lists and you receive emails from different places and different people, and I received an email about the leadership cohort, the first leadership cohort, and when I read it, I thought, oh, I'm absolutely applying for that. And so that is what Papa is talking about. When he saw that application, he's like, who is this person? So yeah, I am Laterrell Bradford, and I was a part of the leadership cohort, as I mentioned before, and our group worked on building bridges and breaking barriers for African Americans and African immigrants. And because each cohort had to work on a project, and that was our project, and that was very close to my heart because I just see the friction, and I've been to several countries in Africa, and I've heard, and being a Black American, I've heard the stereotypes from both sides. And I understand the necessity for us to work together so that we can become a more productive people in general. And I understand that our conflict is it goes way beneath the surface. I mean, it comes from being colonized. It comes from misinformation and such. And so, what I'd like to see, first of all, with the Black American community, is just self-love, learning to love ourselves and learning to love one another. I was having a conversation with a lady yesterday about this, and there's and I haven't seen it, but someone mentioned to me that there's a documentary on Netflix with Toni Morrison teaching about Black self-loathing. And my sister talked about at the entrepreneurial event about, she wrote a book on self-love, and I'd like to see us learn to love ourselves and love one another, and remove the jealousy and the hate and the projecting the negativity onto one another, and really learning how to lift each other up. And I'd like to see us heal from our trauma. You know, a lot of that comes from our trauma and things that we've been taught. I'd like to see us really lift one another up. Each one teach one. You know, really. I mean, when I say go do that, I mean really go in and do that, because I think that will change our communities. You know, I can say I love myself, but if I'm self-destructive and I'm destroying people who look like me, that is not true. Yeah. So that's what I'd like to see happen in the Black community. And in the African Immigrant Community, I'd just like to see us come together as one and recognize one another and be able to have open, honest dialogue without projecting stereotypes, without projecting hurtful, ignorant, for lack of a better term, but it is ignorant information. I heard an African immigrant say that the Black Americans, the Africans that were brought here and enslaved, they caught the weak ones and brought them here. So and think, you know, and so and I've heard Black Americans say, "Oh, I don't want to be around those people," and you know, so that kind of ignorance. I'd like to see us have real dialogue. As you guys know, the movie, the Woman King came out, and people were boycotting that movie. It was Boycott the Woman King because they said they glossed over the fact that Africans sold other Africans into slavery. And once I saw that movie, I texted my team members, and I said, we got to have a conversation about this. We got to bring the community together and talk about this, because I enjoyed the movie, and I didn't feel like they glossed over it at all. But I do believe that that's a conversation that we need to have. We need to have the courage to be able to say, yes, that happened. And we can forgive each other, and we can work together with each other. We have to have the courage to talk about these things, to have the hard conversations, and come together as a whole community and do that. Because that's the only way we're going to heal and move forward. And I'd like to see, last but not least, as we come together, we're lifting each other up. We're becoming a whole community. The African diaspora, all of us, can look at each other through loving eyes and through acceptance and through, I want to learn from you, and I want to teach you, and I want to share with you my culture and what I've learned, and you share with me. And through the lens of love and having the ability to look through someone else's lens other than my own. Yeah, thank you.
I told you she was deep.
Yeah, no.
But get ready for who's coming next, Dr. Malcolm. Oh yes.
You take
I'm
my.
not even thirsty, yeah.
There's more water over there.
Here you go. Brother,
I am
from
wondering.
Uganda.
Oh, I am sorry. I just wanted people to
came
say
back.
their names.
Yes, yes.
So we can get that.
Laterrell Bradford.
I got the Bradford.
Okay, Laterrell.
Dr. Malcolm.
So I'm lost at this point. I hope you're not taping this. But I thought you wanted us to give our name, where we're from, and what our wish is.
Yes, and these they were part of in the committee. I just wanted to have them give a little bit of background. But now name, where you're from, your wish for the Black community, and your wish for the African Immigrant Community.
Oh, and are you typing that down, or it's going to be later on? So
Yes.
I'm trying to see if it's something we should say that she should get, or we're just introducing ourselves.
Introducing ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
and
what
we'll
I'm
get to
doing.
the
the meat.
needy. Yes.
Okay, so I'm just H. Malcolm Newton.
Dr. H. Malcolm Newcomb.
I'm just Dr.
Just-
H. Malcolm Newton.
Yes.
I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and my wish is for collective action and collective empowerment among both communities. My uncle always said, political liberation by any means necessary. And my uncle, of course, was Huey P. Newton, founder of the Black Panthers Party. So I'm going to stick with that for right now.
So this is Magat. Magat, she's been here for 45 days. I wanted to invite him to this conversation as somebody that just got into this country. Maybe they have no idea about the two communities also to give his perspective. But for now, if you can introduce yourself and share with us your wishes for the two communities.
Thank you so much, Papa. Thank you, everyone, for having me here. My name is Magat Silla. I'm from Senegal, West Africa. So I'm here. To try to find out which way I can scale my business. I start from Senegal, and now I'm very lucky to be here. To break the barrier initiative. What are you doing? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, Ms. Danny, yes.
Hi, everybody. My name is Danny Newsom. I'm from Denver. My father was the first generation in his family born in this country. They're from Barbados, and my mom is born and raised in New York. I was born in France, but I consider myself a Denverite. I've lived here most of my life, and I am beyond honored that Papa Jean asked me to be a part of this program. I was blown away during our first meeting, and then blown away listening to you all. And I didn't get time to think about this question. And so maybe I'm projecting something that I want, but I've heard everyone talk about various kinds of empowerment and enlightenment. I am hoping for a spiritual, and that doesn't mean religious, but for a spiritual empowerment. When people are really able to relate to each other and truly see each other's spirits, I find that is incredibly, incredibly uplifting and ultimately empowering. So I don't want to get spirituality confused with religion. I'm not talking about religion, but for a spiritual coming together. Which of course necessitates healing, but that's would be my wish. And for, I was going to say both communities, but knowing that the Afro-Caribbeans were upset that there was no description that they felt applied to them, I will say that's my wish for all communities.
Very good, very good. Thank you. Stephen, thank you for being here.
Thank you. So my name is Stephen Cartwright. I am originally from Nashville, Tennessee. I've been in Denver since 2009. I thank you. I'm grateful to be a part of this setting, this meeting. It's really awesome to be here. I would say my wish would come in three forms. And one is, and it all surrounds around ownership and embracing. I would love for there to be an ownership and embracing of our own human dignity, especially speaking as a Black man, and appreciating who we are. The other part is owning and embracing our historical legacy, and understanding that that legacy does not start with slavery. It does start in Africa, and understanding what that historical value, that data brings to our table as far as how we embrace our own human dignity. But we also have to embrace that the story is what it is. For the Black American, it is what it is. This is what we have to kind of walk through. But within that, also my last thing is just really being able to, as we embrace, being able to have a bridging of the generational gap that has been that's been totally impacted by our history, right? By what we have had to deal with. And so the generational gap around education, finance, family, healing ourselves, and just so many different things that within the African American community, the African Immigrant Community, I think it all impacts us as being identified as the minority group in America. But if we, being able to take who we are, embrace who we are, and begin to bridge those gaps is, for me, my wish.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. Webster?
Oh, hi, my name is Webster Koza. I'm from South Africa originally. And I'm actually more big on Pan-Africanism. And so basically that is the unity of Africa. And now when speaking about the unity of Africa, you cannot actually speak about the unity of Africa and not speak about loving a Black person, right? And I say that because, there's no country in the world that which does not despise a Black man. And so it always hurt my feelings when I see a Black man, criticizing or discriminating another Black person, considering the fact that, Black people, they're already subjected to a lot of discrimination. You speak of China, you speak of India, you speak of France, you speak of Britain, you speak of America. So now, considering the struggles of a Black man, I don't think that it is fair that Black people should also be subjected to the same thing from one of their own. And I speak of that even from, even in my country, how it is so easy for a Black police officer to assault a Black person, but if a white person commits the same crime in Africa, they are being spoken to in a very nice way. How it is so easy for us as Black people, it is easy for us to crucify one another, but if it's a white person, we speak to them in a nice way. Whether you go to a service industry, how white people, they receive good service from Black people, but if another Black person who looks like me comes to me and expecting to receive a good service, is that they receive a different type of service. And meanwhile, this is a person who actually looks like you, who reflects you. So for me, it's all about a Black person loving another Black person, or seeing myself in another Black person.
Okay. Chantal?
My name is Chantal Balungi Lelanzela. I arrived in the United States, I think I have a year and a couple of months. In South Africa, we have xenophobia, we have racism, we have all these things going on. When I was in South Africa, I didn't pick up so much on the black on black hate, maybe because I was South Africans. I knew we have Zimbabweans, Nigerians, and everyone. And I can speak for myself that I didn't hate the other black person, but that is me. And one person cannot say, I represent South Africa. So if someone says South Africans are xenophobic, I'm counted in that. When I got to America, I was very, very excited because, America is the place to be, and we always see black Americans on TV and we love them. Oh, I want to look like that, the way that they speak. As a South African, I was like, wow, I really want to meet these people. So when I got to America my first time, I was in Chicago, I was in Wisconsin. The type of treatment that I got from black Americans was not nice. It broke me. Even now my voice is breaking because since then that has stuck with me, and also not being here for very long, I actually recently had an encounter again, and I work in hospitality in a hotel. Sorry. So I work with a lot of people. So okay, let me breathe a little bit. Okay. So it wasn't good because, first of all, I was working at a call center. The moment that I spoke, when I came in and they saw me, I was okay, I was black first. The moment that I opened my mouth, it changed. Now, I was black, I was African, and I was stupid. And this is now, every time it would be a black American person. But with white people, and this is not to say that I glorify them more, but the first thing is, oh, where's that African? Where's that accent from? And it wasn't in a demeaning way, but it would be like, oh, and then I would be excited to tell them, oh, no, I'm from South Africa. And then they would ask questions which were, okay, something that I would answer. But I would find that with most black Americans, they were very resistant into knowing about us. They would mock how I spoke. They would mock, for example, I also picked up a job at a fast food restaurant. And one person said, I wanted Sierra Mist. So the Sierra Mist and then the Sprite. I only know Sprite. I don't know Sierra Mist. I'm like, no, we don't have that. We only have Sprite. It's like, no, Sierra Mist. I'm like, I don't know that. And then she had and in this instance, it wasn't a black American. It was a white person. And they were like, okay, just call your manager. I was like, I wanted Sierra Mist. It's like, oh, no, we have it. It was like, well, if she doesn't know what it is, then she shouldn't be here. It's things like that the culture shock was too much, but not mostly from the white people. It was mostly from the black people. How every time you would try to help them, it's like, oh, one person at this one time was like, isn't there, because it was a call center and we're all J1, so you have a bunch of Africans doing this internship. It's like, oh, why does it sound like an African jungle in there? Isn't there? Where am I? Is this India? Is this, And it broke me because the one reason I was excited in coming to America is because I wanted to meet people who looked like me, who represented me. And I wanted to find out, how did you get there? Do you want to know where I come from? And why is it that I'm on the other side and you on this other side? So it took very long for me to, it's even a difficult topic for me when he says that, why is it so, when we give service, I'm no longer excited in giving a black American service. Not that I'm not going to give it to them, but that excitement of me wanting to give it to them, it's always difficult. Like the recent encounter, this gentleman, I was helping a guest, which happened to be white, and then he just came up in the middle of the conversation. In this middle of the conversation, he just jumped into the conversation and was like, oh, ma'am, where's breakfast? And I'm like, okay, just a second, let me help her and then I'll help you. Oh, why you want to help her? Is it because she's white? And I'm like, okay, that escalated very quickly. To a point when I started to answer him, he picked up on my accent. It's like, yeah, where are you from? Where are you from? It's people like you that we don't want here because you glorify white people over us. I feel like as Africans, we're never given the chance, especially with black Americans, to explain ourselves. And at the same time, I feel like black Americans feel like when we are here, we don't support them. And my biggest thing is, how do they want us as black immigrants to come in, and how do we form part of them? Because how he said it was like, oh, because you helping a white person before me. But at the same time, it was an issue of morals. Like, you can see that I'm helping someone, so let's, I'm not going to say, oh, ma'am, hold on, I'm not going to help you now because, there's a black person. It's just how we should relate as people. You came first, so I'm going to help you, and then we can. So my biggest thing after so many and relating with, so many people, I would want to find out, how do black Americans want us to support them so that we can show also that we are with them, not against them. That's my biggest thing.
Well, hard to follow all of that. But my name is Jalil Owuni. I'm born and raised here in Aurora, Colorado. I still consider myself Ghanaian. That's just how it was at home. Even though I stepped out, went to school, it was America. As soon as I got home, it was Ghanaian culture, Ghanaian everything. So I still consider myself Ghanaian. I guess my wish, especially for the black community, is acceptance. for Africans, accepting our culture, celebrating our culture. We're 6, 7 generations, behind for the Black Africans from Africa. So just coming back to that culture, celebrating our culture. I just don't want to see it when, the Black Panther comes out or, the Woman King comes out. I want us to do it all the time, not just when certain events happen. Another thing for the Black community that I really dislike is this victim culture, and I totally understand. Things are unfair for people of color in this country, but how is it that my parents come from a village, a third world country, and are able to come here and succeed and have a good life, but yet Black Americans still continue to just say, the world's against me, the world's against me. Like, I understand, I totally get it, but I guess what I'm trying to say is I really want to understand. I know it goes deep roots, but I want to come to an understanding why we all can't win. A lot of African immigrants come in here and they end up doing good for themselves. It is a struggle, but they end up doing good for themselves. So why can't we do that for the Black community as well?
So we have Alphonse. Alphonse, can you hear us? Okay. So now.
No, I can hear you. I was just mute.
Okay, Alphonse, can you introduce yourself and maybe share your wish for the two communities, please?
I'm Alphonse Lamont. So by hearing your name, I think I may know many of you, and it's going to be a tough road to go because emotions and ideas are what drive a community to move forward. So, and being involved with Breaking Barrier was for me an eye-opening about the two communities, because it comes back to what the sister from South Africa was saying. It comes back to cultural things that is deep. We hearing from the brother from Ghana, he's proud to say he's Ghanaian because he has that culture embedded in him, transmitted to him by his parent. Each of us in this call, in this room, share some cultural connection that link us to something stronger than our skin, than our level of thought, than anything. So healing the two community for what is going on here in the United States, it is kind to bring up a new culture, not the culture that it's set by the community, by the society that we're living in, but more by something that we believe that is a shared value. We all love food. We all love sport. We all love a lot of things, but why we don't come together to enjoy that? My hope is with this group, we start to build a culture in the way that it doesn't matter where I'm from. Just by the fact that my skin color is black, I can relate to so many things with each and anyone here, without even knowing if you're African, if you're African American, or if you're Caribbean. Just because they're not. When you walk and see some brother walking close to you and just move your head, that is a culture that you will never take it from Africa. It doesn't matter if you come from Africa or from the United States. It just happened to be something that we communicate. I see you. Why not bring that I see you to the next level where it becomes now a culture that we share to our kids? We come in here, we look at the Black community, if I can say it here, not in the good way, because that's the way the media portray them. Drug dealers, killers, haters, not love each other. But where we come from, I'm not a minority. I'm a person where I'm coming from, I'm the king. I'm the king in the street. I don't matter if we like 1,000 king or 1 million king. If we all learn some culture, some value that we share, that we don't even trying to leverage it for something else. That's my hope in this Breaking Barrier group, so that we come to understand that we are here today because we want to see a change. But for that change to happen, we need first to stop identifying ourselves as African or African American, but to start building a culture as a group, so that people that are looking at us doing it will identify themselves and say, oh, I can relate to that. I want to imitate that. So that's my hope.
Thank you, Alphonse. All right, let's take a minute to yes, it's just, and I'm practicing what I learned from you, to just release the energy, and we all know that there was a lot, and this is just the surface. We haven't even dug deep. So, but before we go further, I would like to just recenter the conversation for everybody to be clear of what brings us here and how can we put our mind together to have the best outcome. So first and foremost, we want to make sure that this is a free and safe environment, and for us to be genuine, because that's the main goal. Because the main goal is for us to be able to share whatever perception we have, and nobody is here to judge you, wrong or bad. Because when we put that out, that will be the real representation of the community and how we feel. Because the goal is later on now to come up with solutions. But if we're trying to hide it from each other and not say it as it is, it won't serve the purpose. Now, and Brother Jeff, when he comes on the 12th, the workshop, he had 3 hours or 2 hours. So that's when we will dig deep. So what we wanted to do for this gathering is to share some ideas for Chantal and Dr. Malcolm, I know you're a writer, to put together a poem that is a real representation from both communities and how we feel, where we are, because that will be a poem, and there will be the Breaking Barrier poem, and also hopefully toward the end to give recommendation as solution and ideas, because we just don't want it to be a poem that just highlight all the issue and leave people hanging with that this is the end of the world, we're never going to come together, but maybe also come up with idea or testimony or things that we witness that we could implement, hoping that we all come together. And there are real things. So I'm going to pause there to see if there's any comment or the videographer want to participate.
No, I know you excluded me. But
No, please, yes.
I am black also. I'm also African, whatever you know. My thing, to be honest with, I need some education. Maybe from the African Americans who are here. Why is it when people, or who even decide who is the black community and who's the African community? That's what I don't understand, because the last time I checked, I'm black. So when they say black community, I see myself in it. So to me, there's a lot of politics involved, that whoever is ruling is using terms to separate us, and we're accepting it. Because when people refer to the African Americans as the black community, I am black, so I think I am part of it. But no, like people will put you aside and say, no, you're Africans. We're all Africans. The whole world, Cheikh Anta Diop, who's from Senegal, did some research very deep to find out that actually Africa is the cradle of humanity. Mm-hmm. So before they were white, they were black people. So to me, we are all one. And I sympathize with you, Chantal, but it will only get better. Because if you were here for a long time, you will realize that the person that you meet who treats you in a negative way, he or she is doing it out of ignorance, and he or she is not representing the African Americans. That's what I came to learn after being here for 22 years. So to me, we only do it one sister or one brother at a time. Whoever you meet, try to educate, try to be educated. Because to me, that That will be the only solution that we have. If I meet an African American, I need to share what I know and allow him also to teach me. Because when we think that we know, that's when there is a problem. I think, as they would always say, the first sign of knowledge is knowing that you don't know. So if I meet you, I don't know your culture, I should accept that I don't know and I ask so that you can educate me, because whoever you meet is your teacher in some way. But what I need education maybe from Dr. Malcolm there is like, why are you guys referred to as the black community when we are all black? Who defined that word? Like, who created that term? That's what I want to know.
I actually have something, I don't know if it's appropriate right now, especially because you called her Dr. Malcolm. And my name isn't Dr. Malcolm.
That's totally fine. I just don't know your name. I know
No,
my brother.
you know what? I think I need you
to
polite and let the man you called on talk,
You can
and
answer
then
it too, man. That's
and
all
then
right.
I'll
Yeah.
just speak after you. Sorry, Dr. Malcolm.
Lord, why is me here? Lord, why is me here? Lord, why is me here? I wish I was never born. I wish I was never born. That song kind of emulates the trauma, the pain, the struggle, the suffering that African Americans has undergone for 400 years when they hit the American shore. It's not so much ignorance as it is out of pain that they respond to you or that they react to you. It's pain that they're feeling deep down inside. They don't even know it. It's the mental trauma of generations. Who said that? Stephen Cartwright. Generations of trauma and pain and suffering that, forgive us, please, for how we treat you. It should not be. Because as my professor said, we're all from the same roots, same stem. White folks are black and don't even know it. That's where they come from.
It's
true. Black was here first. Mm-hmm. Jesus was black. But they want to worship someone that looks like them so they can feel safe. And we learned a lot of our mores and values and ethics from them, unfortunately. So the same ones who named Africa, are the same ones who named us. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Dr. Malcolm. I just wanted to, and this is Danny speaking. Boy, Dr. Malcolm, talking about generations of trauma and pain. It's so internalized. So many African Americans, Black Americans, might not even be able to speak about it, might not even be conscious. It may not be conscious to them, but so much pain. But as far as identification, in America, we were identified by others. From the time our ancestors were forcibly brought here, we were defined by others. So that in our attempts to define ourselves, I don't know how many identifiers we've had just in the time I've been alive, but that's important. Not as a barrier to people who don't understand, but it's important because it was an attempt to identify. I go back to the 60s and James Brown, "Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud." It doesn't matter where I'm at. I mean, I get goosebumps now when I'm in the car, wherever I'm at. And if I hear it, I still remember how I felt when I was first hearing it. It was a Black man at a very important time saying, "Say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud." And he was identifying himself, and many of us were echoing that identification. And that's important in the context of an experience in the United States, the experiences in the Caribbean, where others were defining and limiting, literally owning, but defining and limiting everything about us, our labor, our humanity, our aspirations. It's so important to be able to identify ourselves, no matter what the term. It was important that we define us. And that's what I had wanted to say.
Thank you so much.
We have not always been black.
No.
We were niggers, coons, then Negroes, then colored. And then we decided that we're going to be Afro-Americans. Then we decided we're going to be black. And then we come back again, now we're African-Americans.
And
So many names.
if you don't mind, just to add on to that, because I personally went through this with a coworker, and I actually invited her to say something, because exactly that. I just asked her about being African, and she said, and then like, I'm not African, and she was saying I'm not black, and in my perception, I was looking at my skin as a black person, and she went on. We ended up talking and going back to history, back what you said, African American, that she even said, we're different from you because of these things, the body and all this stuff. And then I didn't know, because for me, I was defending my skin color, and her perception was defending the answer, culture, what you say. Mm-hmm. And now that you guys are talking about it, it just hits me, because this was during that whole class, and I think I brought it up a couple of times because it was hitting me. It was Black History Month. We ended up because I had another coworker. He's from Africa, Nigeria, and they were like that. I ended up being the middle person. I talked to this guy by himself, this lady by themselves, and I learned something, that I was blind talking about my skin. She was about her culture, that this is what we do as black people. And it hit me, and I was like, wow, we are so, like, there's a lot of conflict that we need. And unfortunately, I didn't bring it so much about, but when I finished it, I'll go back and I talk to her about what we're doing. You know, Lena, she's a co-worker. She's an African from Trinidad, and she's the older, senior person, and the other gentleman is a senior person than me. But this class, Breaking Barrier, gave me the audacity to talk to them, because what was going on was not right, and we'll walk past each other. John was in that time, and I was, why are we doing this? And so you guys, Professor, bringing this up, it just went back, and then your answers clarified exactly, the differences we had, and sometimes it's just, we're blind and the issue.
Someone mentioned, I guess it was Terrell, mentioned about the lens. And what I appreciate is being able to put on somebody else's lens, just even in this circle. I also think about, though, that for the black man, we have a tendency to be the token black person whenever we're in any circle. That for us, that I could even feel, even now, that as a black man, I'm still kind of the token black man in the circle, even though I'm amidst other people of my same color. But there is that distinction between black and African that you have to kind of mend and put together how to go past, right, and go beyond. But it does start with somebody else's lens, so that we can see outside of our experience and realize there, what's out there. So,
And I'd like to add also, being an open vessel, because if I stay grounded in what I know and who I am and where I came from and my lens and my vision, then I don't grow. So being an open vessel and being able to learn from others and accept their truth without trying to define their truth. When you share your truth with me, I'm not to say, oh, well, you shouldn't feel that way. Or that didn't happen. Or I don't need to define your truth for you. Allowing others to define their truth and being an open vessel that I can receive that information, I can process that information, and maybe just be quiet. Maybe I'll say something, maybe I don't. But I think that's and also having the ability to research, read, understand other people's culture. Because we can project and judge and not know what we're talking about. So understanding other people's culture, researching it, reading it, having the conversations, being an open vessel, inviting people in. If we're sitting at a table and everyone's talking and someone doesn't speak, we can say, I'd like to invite so-and-so to share your opinion. Inviting people in and calling people in as opposed to calling people out. Leading with love. Leading with, I show up here as an open vessel to understand. I'm not here to judge you or to put you down or to criticize you or to argue my point. I don't need to be right. I'm here to exchange information. I'm here to help our community heal. I'm here to learn. I'm here to transform if necessary. Like Malcolm X says, by any means necessary. What do we need to do? So that we can all see the humanity in each other. Because the reality is, when we do that, it becomes a beautiful chord. When we can see the humanity in each other and we can learn from each other and we cannot project our own hate onto each other, it becomes beautiful. And our differences are to be celebrated. I'm different from you, and that's a good thing. Our differences are to be celebrated. And I think that is not only a necessary conversation to have, it's a necessary energy to live in and to walk in. So when I meet my brother or my sister that is different from me, and even if they are conducting themselves in a way that I may not agree with, I can still project love onto them. I can still possibly have a conversation where I come from a lens of, well, not what's wrong with you, but what happened to you. Like when Dr. Malcolm was talking about the brutality of slavery, most people have no idea of the brutality of slavery. The brutality of it. It was horrific. If you really research it and read it and understand it, the things that black people, the things that happened, and so I don't call the plantation owners masters. I'll call them psychopaths. I always say the psychopaths. Because to be that brutal towards another human being, something's wrong. Something's terribly wrong. So that level of brutality passed down from generation to generation to generation, and as several people have already stated, not allowing you to have any dignity. We had to create a culture and a life out of absolutely nothing. Because the goal was to have their foot on our necks forever. We were never supposed to rise up, ever. It's like George Floyd was there dying with this cop's knee on his neck. That's us. That's all of us. That's the way we were supposed to live forever. We were supposed to make this country rich and make other people rich forever. So the fact that we did the work to rise up through all of that brutality and hate, and it's like Dr. Malcolm said, we learned from them. They were still our teachers. The whippings, the self-hate, the degradation. We internalize that stuff. It's just like I heard a professor say, Ebonics. Ebonics is a language because when the Africans came here, they did not speak English. So they spoke broken English and created their own language, which is Ebonics, and we need not be ashamed of that. We have been made to feel ashamed of our hair, our skin color, everything we're supposed to be ashamed of. So that neck on George Floyd's neck is really an example of how we were supposed to live forever. We was never supposed to rise up, ever. And so to be able to see the humanity in one another, that is our goal. To be able to love one another, to be able to look through my brother's lens, to be able to speak to you in a loving manner, even if I disagree with your behavior. Even if I see you doing wrong, being able to check you from a lens of love. Instead of, don't help that brother, look at him, he ain't, that kind of stuff. That has to go because it's not helpful. I ask myself often, is this behavior or this conversation helping or is it harming? Is this helping or is it harming? Before I have a conversation with someone, is this going to help or is it going to harm? Because I check myself first. If it's going to be harmful, then I'll find another way to do it. Because putting you down and judging you and asking you why you can't rise up and when I'm saying it with that kind of energy, is that helping? Does that help? That doesn't help. That's harmful because what I'm doing is I'm projecting blame onto you and I don't even know your situation.
But I know you want to say something. I won't be long. But keep in mind, and Chantel, I'd like for you to take notes on it. We were not considered humans. We were considered property, cargo, property. So if you teach a little white kid, that this is a table, this is a chair, and you're teaching him from his infant days, this is a table, this is a chair. And he grows up believing this is a table, this is a chair. So those people out there in the cotton field, in the tobacco field, are not human beings. They're our property. We own them. So that kid grows up believing that they're not human. We own them. They do what we say. So we want to consider humans.
They don't have feelings.
Property. Right. So you see, that's kind of that's what she's talking about. I just want to keep that in mind. And so the other thing was, well, I'll let you.
Thank you, Dr. Malcolm. What I have learned, today on this table is just like me know a lot of things, like more than 40 years experience. You guys got 22 years experience. We struggle. You got right here. You're right. I came here just since 45 days, and then now I got more than 22 experience. I'm lucky. And you guys make me understand one conversation I got with my business partner. He's American. And when he welcomed us, he said that, man, our neighborhood, we just have white people. I did not understand why he said that. Now I understand. Because he don't want to be like with black people. Why he developed complex. Now I understand that maybe they hate each other. Black people don't like black people. You're right. Professor, what is the difference with American, African, or black people? We have to understand that.
Not even black people.
I don't know if you guys get my point.
Sure.
Yeah.
I wanted him at the table for... Yeah, Alphonse, just a minute. I wanted him at the table because for somebody that just got here also, it's totally different.
Fresh.
And
Fresh meat.
Fresh, and his perspective also is valuable. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. So, Alphonse, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I wanted to share another piece of the story because I really appreciate what Latre was sharing, the emotion and the part in it, because guess what? We went through the same process back home. We were not called human. We were colonized and we were slaves in our own continent. But what happened was, at one time, some of us went abroad and see the difference between how they were treating other people compared to how they were treating us. And it became a culture to let them know that we are different from you, but we're going to stand for our difference. And that's how we get our independence. Maybe physically we get that independence, but at least at one point we told them that enough is enough. We don't want you anymore here. We don't want you to come treat us as masters because you don't care about us. We were like property. I remember some of my grandparents telling us when they were farming back in Africa, they were slaves for white people who came and have cotton farms in Cameroon. But the thing is, those are the things that we need to share so that both sides learn about the perspective and the view and where each person is coming from with his mentality and his argument. Because being a teacher here, I never thought that I'm going to face something where people will get out of the class just because I'm teaching and I'm a caller. I never dreamed that, but it happens. Not once, not twice. And it was a shock. And I learned from it. And I move on because the goal is they're still good in human beings, but we need to share this kind of culture together so that when one of us shine, everyone can see why he is shining. He's not shining from the hate. He's not shining from being seen or not seen as a human being and not being a human being, but he's shining because he's proud of who he is and what is his culture, what is the people that support him to be there. So, yeah, I was just trying to add that to what you were sharing, Leclerc.
Thank you, Alphonse. And for me, anytime I sit at the table, and honestly, I learned so much because we, as African immigrants, we were never taught about the trauma that the black people, we just don't know. It's a fact. So, and we don't know the pain and the trauma that can be carried over from generation to generation. Because as human beings, sometimes we think like, this happened to you, it's long gone. We just don't know. It's the reality. We don't know everything that the black people went through. And we are totally different. As African immigrants, when we were colonized, we had access to education because they wanted us to assimilate. There's a difference. So everybody was forced to go to school. In fact, our parents, even though they were born in Africa, but they had French nationalities.
That's right.
Two different stories.
It was illegal for us to learn how to read.
You see, and most African, we don't know that. We don't know that history. So to Stephen's point, when we come here, we see the black people through our lens, through what we went through, and what happened is we became judgmental. So to your point, what you were saying, we could never understand as African immigrant. I came here 5 years later, I'm an engineer, I'm doing this. So there's a black man that were born and raised in this country and struggling. We could not understand that it went from generation to generation.
That's right, to generation.
And that black person doesn't even know it.
And the laws.
And all the things.
Redlining.
Yes. So
and the laws that kept black people, that built ghettos.
Kept black people down.
Yeah. There were laws. It was against the law to learn how to read.
So Uzi is itching to come. You can come sit and participate in the
But
conversation.
you guys should relate to that coming out of apartheid.
Yeah, so let's,
because actually that's where I actually wanted to come into, to say, I definitely get the head, I get the problems, even us. Let me just give an example with what's happening in South Africa, right? South Africa having come out from apartheid, whereby we're being oppressed by white people, being forced to learn mathematics in a foreign language, young people being killed, being massacred. Yet, right now, South Africa, though it is actually liberated, but now the systems of apartheid that which were put in place. Up until today, they're still playing its part.
That's right.
And we see that actually manifesting in what way? In South Africa right now, they always have what we call xenophobic attacks, as my wife, she alluded, right? Now, whereby black South Africans, they always say that foreigners, they must leave South Africa because foreigners, they are stealing their jobs. But guess what? Who's those foreigners? Those are black people, right? Even though we know very well that there are Chinese who are illegal in South Africa, but nobody talks about Chinese who are illegal.
Indians.
There are Indians who are illegal in South Africa, but nobody talks anything about Indians.
People of color.
You know, and even also people of color. And as a matter of fact, people of color, they are not taking jobs in South Africa. Instead, they are taking minerals. You know, they are exploiting the entire country. But now the system that which was put in place, which diminished the character or the identity of a black man, makes us as black people not to also value each other. And that's why even when we say that we are fighting foreigners, we are fighting black people who look like us, and which is the same thing that which I'm seeing manifesting also even here, whereby because that identity of humanity in black people, you know, you have been taught that you are not humans but you are properties. So now when you see another black person, that's why we just want to fight ourselves, because of the system that which has been put in us. So we have to liberate our minds, you see, to understand that we are not properties but we are human beings, and that we are alive, and that we are even better when we are together. But as long as we are still walking according to the systems that which a white man has put in us, that's why we'll continue the hate. Because the same thing that is happening here is exactly what South Africans are doing to Zimbabweans. People who speak the same language as us. Same thing that which South Africans are doing to Nigerians. Same thing that which South Africans are doing to Botswana. So it's not the only place here in America whereby Americans are doing to us as Africans, but it is everywhere. In other words, the problem is with a black person. How do we liberate ourselves from self-hate? Because that's where the biggest problem is. Because we can speak about slavery, we can speak about apartheid, but how do we liberate ourselves from self-hate? Because we hate ourselves. Because if it is easy for me to hate someone who looks like me, and yet when I see a white person, I become nice and I smile, then that means we are not yet liberated. You see, we are still captivated.
Psychological.
I have an answer for your question. Sorry. Yeah, it was very deep and emotional. I think, people don't have, let people tell you your history. You have to learn about your culture. If somebody tell you your story, for example, he gonna cut it, and you're gonna know yourself. That is our issue. The main issue is we cannot identify ourselves. The main issue, Black American God, is they don't know themselves. That's why they cannot identify, true on you, for example. Okay. Yeah, that is my point of view.
I used to live in South Africa.
You used to live in South
I
Africa?
lived in Cape Town. I went to the University of Cape Town.
I just want to piggyback on something that Dr. Malcolm said. He said when a small white child is taught that this is a table and this is a chair and that black person is inhuman. I was watching a show, a documentary, and an older white man, wealthy older white man, sat there and wept. And he talked about their maid and the black people who cleaned their homes. And he wept and he said, "We did not see them. They really were like a piece of furniture." And the way he was describing it is because that was what he had been taught. Mm-hmm. That's the energy and the spirit in which he lived and walked in. But the person he was sitting there at that time, he realized how sick and wrong that was, and that's the reason why he was weeping. And he was saying, "We did not see them." And what he was saying is we didn't see their humanity.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
We literally did not see them. We sat around and drank our coffee and had our tea and had conversations, and these people were there, and we never saw them. Mm-hmm. And that is the life and the experience of Black Americans.
So the white folks recognize you, but they don't want to recognize us. You see? So we all are Black, but we all are not African Americans, for instance. We all are Black, but we all are not African Americans.
Do you think that they treat us African immigrants differently from Black
Oh.
Americans? I mean, if we
Absolutely, that's the whole new trend. If it
Well-
wasn't for the George Floyd situation that happened, black folks wouldn't be getting a dime. The new thing is now, we're sick of black folks. We gave them medication, we gave them civil rights, we gave them voting right, and now they want more. What more do they want? We're tired of giving them something. Let's give to the African immigrants now.
I think
And let's pause, okay? And that's a very, very good point. And so let's pause for a minute because there's a lot of things we just unpacked. And I want for each of us to have at least a few seconds to reflect on what we've heard. Now, before we transition to I just want to let you know that main goal again is to identify things. Maybe solution is very, I don't know, but steps that we can take to bring the two. This is huge because most of us as African immigrants in this short period of time, we've been educated even more. On some, because I've been here for 23 years, I didn't know. I'm the first one to admit that I was extremely judgmental toward the black people. The first one.
God bless you, brother.
First one.
I love you.
Extremely judgmental. Until a mentor of mine invited me to lunch, and Derek Brown changed that. And I get involved into Wells Fargo. Now they have what they call Checkpoint, which is a group of black people coming together to identify how can they get promotion within the banking industry, because it was extremely difficult. So the more I was sitting there, and that's when I get to see black professional coming in wearing suit and tie and having title. Otherwise, I will never see it. And this happened before even I get to this country. This happened when in Africa, what I was shown on TV. That's the only knowledge and perception I had toward the black people. Yep. So I came here not wanting to deal with nobody from the black community. Fact.
Well, that's true because I taught ministry at the seminary, and one young Ghanaian got up in front of the whole white faculty, president, administration, and white students and says, "My mother did not want me to come here because they said this country is very violent and to stay away from African Americans."
Yep.
So Africans come here to do ministry, Christian ministry, but they never visit an African American church. They go to a white school, they go to a white church, and they live in a white neighborhood. They get back on the plane after they get their degree and go back home. What does that say?
Chantel, I wanted to answer something that you had brought up. You asked a question, and I think your question was, now I forget your question. I only remember my answer. That's great. But anyway, I think it depends on who the white person is. Let's just take George Floyd's killer. I don't think it would have mattered to him if George Floyd was African American, Black American, an African immigrant, a Caribbean immigrant. He was black. So I don't think it would matter to some white people. Okay, and so my answer is it kind of depends. You know, maybe if you're talking about a potential employer, the difference might matter, or the perceived difference might matter to that employer. It's like, an African, an educated African, as opposed to an African American. That might matter. But so I think it really depends on who's doing the interpreting, who is seeing us, and what they're seeing. For some, they're going to see black and whatever that means to them. For others, they may perceive difference, whether it's real or not. They may perceive difference, depending on where they're coming from. So was that responsive to your question?
Asking about white folks viewing African immigrants different from
And
African
why
Americans.
the shift of saying, which is where I want to get, like, where can we meet Black Americans, where we're not seen as, okay, this is African Americans, and then these are Black Americans. I want us where, because my thing is, I don't see myself different from Black Americans, so I want to be part of that culture, but the resistance from them, I'm like, okay, what can I do as an African
good
immigrant so that they can feel like I am part of them, because we look the same. And as a matter of fact, I can, from the people that I know, the first people that we want to see when we come to America is Black American. We love their culture. We want to find out more about them. But the resistance that we get from them is what kind of makes us to push back, because we don't feel as welcome.
I have a really quick story. I started this is quite a while ago, and I was new on a job. And it was a small department, and the people in the department were mostly Black. There were a couple of white people, but they were mostly Black. And Black American, and I was treated horribly. I would go home crying. They would go out to lunch. I would, see them on the elevator, and the door is closing, and I know they're all going off to lunch. And I was absolutely excluded. To keep the story short, they had a lot of preconceptions about me. The way I spoke, something one of the supervisors had said about me, which wasn't true, but she was hoping that they would treat me better for her saying it about me. It didn't work. But the way I spoke, they perceived me to be very different from them, too proper, maybe even too white.
Not Black enough.
Yes, yes. But my tears didn't go on forever. I kept showing up for work, and I kept showing up for them. And we did have some confrontations. I'm like, y'all don't have to like me, but you need to respect me. I need to do my job here. But I kept showing up. And eventually, I would go to lunch. Eventually, they would laugh and joke with me in the office, but it took a lot. It took a lot of time. I'm not talking about what's fair or what's right. It was the situation I was in, where I was perceived to be somebody different and threatening, and they didn't understand. And all I'm going to say is I kept showing up. I kept showing up. No need to be a doormat now. That's not what I'm saying. Absolutely. As I said, we did have some confrontations, but you keep showing up.
And I'd like to add, it's okay to be different. We're not all the same. And it's okay to be your authentic self and show up as your authentic self, because we are not all the same. So it's okay to be different. And secondly, I think I always keep at the forefront of my mind that there's a concentrated effort to make us look like hoodlums and thugs and drug dealers and prostitutes and less than. There's a concentrated effort to make us look that way around the world. Anti-Blackness, global anti-Blackness is a very real thing from other minorities. And there's been a concentrated effort to make that happen. My sister always says, if a people are struggling, why would you still keep your foot on their necks? They are already struggling, so why would you do that? So I think understanding and being grounded in who we are, how beautiful and powerful we really are, that these people feel the need to continue to try and disenfranchise us, continuously come up with all kind of schemes and efforts and all kind of ugliness to divide us, and to record companies who will fund artists who demean us, but an artist who's rapping about positive stuff won't fund them or give them a record deal. So there's a concentrated effort, and always has been, to harm us and have us harm ourselves and each other. And then there's a term that I'm sure the African immigrants probably haven't heard, or maybe you have, HNIC, head nigger in charge. That's a saying, like, there's one black person that can be at the top. And you hear black people say, I'm the HNIC. There's one black person, when you showed up on that job and you were different, and the other black people there treated you differently. And it's because there's a pecking order. I went to lunch with my coworkers today because we're all working from home now. I was the only black person there. So a lot of times when black people are the only black person there, and then another one shows up, we've been socialized to feel threatened by each other. We've been socialized to say, I'm the HNIC, what are you doing here? You're not going to take my place. All of this is colonization. All of this has been a concentrated effort to brainwash us into harming ourselves and others. And my last point is, I went to Houston this past weekend. I was in Houston. And I experienced just what you were talking about. At the different restaurants, a lot of times, and people would talk to me friendly, but then I would get the look like, you know, I don't take it personal anymore because I understand where it's coming from. It's coming from self-hate. It's coming from the colonized mind. I do not take it personal. I don't. I still show up with love and kindness and giving because I understand where it all has come from. And in order for us to shift it, we still got to show up with love and kindness. Like you said, don't be a doormat. But I feel like I still have to show up. And if I cannot tell you, I can at least model a behavior for you. I can model the behavior by living it, by walking it out. You will see me act a certain way. If I can't articulate it, I can model it.
So let me add this, Professor Wilbur. Do you need to head out?
I don't know. I need to speak.
Oh, you would.
He said he's black too.
Sorry. Go ahead, Professor. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, because you said something earlier about Africans coming here, they lack of knowledge on like what is going on here. I think I don't want to say I was the exception, but I never felt that I was completely ignorant of the African culture. And one thing that helped me, and maybe it might help other people too, is reading about the African American literature. I majored in that, so I wrote my thesis. You mentioned earlier Toni Morrison. Mm-hmm. I read her a lot, Zora Neale Hurston, Langston Hughes, James Baldwin, Chester Himes. So all those people, like while reading, I think it was also educating me. Because the first thing I realized is that we had the same culture. When I was reading stuff like if you break a mirror, it is like 7 years of bad luck. We believe the same thing in Africa, and that is just one example. So like to me, that was a lot of education preparing me of being here. Like what she's experiencing, personally, I never experienced it. I don't know like if it was me already knowing and preparing myself to whatever was coming. My take is don't just like judge one person, don't judge a community by the acts of one person. We face the same things as Muslim here. Like when you introduce yourself or you say Alhamdulillah or you say whatever term you use, people will start to walk away because of what other people did. It has nothing to do with us. What we can do the best way is to model ourselves in a certain way, believe in ourselves. Like my thing to you is that you don't need anybody's permission to be who you are. Mm-hmm. Like just believe in yourself and let it out. Like me, I will never try to change the way I speak. I am African and I love my accent. The first thing I tell people is it doesn't matter if you speak with an accent. Just make sense when you do.
Love it. Love it.
That was my take.
Love it.
Let me
Love
just
that.
say one thing.
That's good.
This is a good
That's
take,
really
because
good.
I'm writing for her
Actually, I'm
American poets.
Yeah.
Oh,
African American poets that she can look at. One is Langston Hughes.
Oh, yes.
He says, "Let America be America again." And then that whole poem, pretty long, he really describes what it is, African American, what it means to be America. What do we have on paper? Let's make it work. Everyday life. This is a fantastic piece that Langston Hughes has put together. Then you have Paul Laurence Dunbar.
Yep.
Then you have Sonia Sanchez
Oh, yes.
from my home in Philadelphia. Gwendolyn Brooks
Yes.
and Maya Angelou. So this is just for
Put
you
James Baldwin on
to
there?
do some work.
James Baldwin should be on there.
It definitely should be on there. Of course, I got Hughes on the back.
So what I would like
James
for
Baldwin,
us to
Ralph Ellison. I mean, we can go on and on.
The
But
Invisible
Invisible
Man.
And I
Man,
was
so
giving
very
more
important.
Poets
Okay.
rather than authors.
Okay.
So I hope that at this point we African immigrant we have a better perspective where everything that the black community been through. And I think the learning from there for us is to do our best not to be judgmental. To answer your question, for me, when you say show up, that's what I've never had this before. Like me, because I am part of the black community. I am. I mean, like literally, because I kept showing up. I kept reaching out. I kept welcoming. I kept inviting. That's what we have to do more. Because as African immigrant, ask yourself, when did I ever invite somebody from a different community into my circle? We don't do that. The African Leadership Group is the only platform organization you come to. You see people from, because for me, as the founder of this organization, I was extremely intentional about it. Some people even tried to criticize me to do that. I didn't care. Because for me, it's an organization based on humanity, on human being, period. Period. And I think when she talked about keep showing up, keep having more of this conversation, that's the way, it's one of the solution or whatever we can do. So, and I hope as black community, you learn more from our background, our history, just hearing where
Yes.
we come from. And now I would like to use the last part of it now for her, because I want this to be a poem for breaking barriers and building bridges. I want this to be a national poem. People will read it and know exactly that people in Colorado study this. So
No pressure. No pressure.
and that's the goal. So let's use this last part and talk about what action step, what can we do now? What or maybe what we're doing that we could share.
That's a good line.
That's a great
That's an
Wonderful
excellent.
line.
That's
And now, and honestly,
Excellent.
and the conversation doesn't end here. We have a group text, and let's keep exchanging. So again, let me tell you what's happening on November 12th. All of you are invited, and this is Leadership Africa. This is their last class. So the first part of the morning, we'll kick it off with our beautiful poem. That's how we're going to kick it off.
And what time does it start?
At 9 o'clock.
At 9 a.m.
At 9 a.m. And after the poem, we're going to have
Absolutely.
Brother Jeff that's going to do 2 hours. And that workshop session going to be crazy. Bring tissues. Everybody, it's going to be like real. And now in that class, half of the class is African American, half of the class is African immigrant. And Dr. Malcolm knows. It's going to be interesting. But I want all of us to show up to support her as she's going to be representing us. And so we can continue to work, because it's not going to end there either.
Yeah.
Okay? So like the Black Art Festival is coming. Juneteenth is coming. So I wanted this to continue to be that movement and to create that awareness.
That is fabulous. And I need a tissue because I'm not going to be there. So to all of you, I am so sorry. And I know Brother Jeff. I've been on his show. Brother Jeff is incredible. So I am so sorry that
But
I
it
am
will be
not going to
recorded.
be there.
It will
Pardon
be
me?
recorded. It will be
Well,
recorded.
yeah, but I'm still so sorry that I'm not going to be there in the moment, but I'm thrilled that there will be more.
Yes.
This, we are building here. And so, I will show up again.
Yes, yes.
I absolutely will.
So now let's touch on some of the things that you've seen that could work, or some of the things that you think we could do. And let's just open it up and
You have 3 minutes.
and to take it from there. Yeah. Any ideas?
Part
Please.
of it for me is the education piece. You guys really opened up my eyes about seeing something through a lens. You know, even though I went to school here, I still don't. I was never taught about slavery. I mean, they talked about civil rights a little bit, but they never go into much detail. So I think a lot of it starts with education. I think that's number one. Yeah, and I think that's where we go, is how do we start to educate people more?
And the question is, who wrote the books that you were reading?
I think what you
Yes,
said,
Alphonse, a second.
Dr. Malley, is we always have to go beneath the surface. We have to keep that in the forefront of our minds. We can never stay on the surface. We always have to go beneath the surface and ask the questions, why? How did this happen? Where did this come from? Who wrote this? As black people, we have to be serious critical thinkers. My granddaughter, I picked her up from dance class, and she said, no, they have candy cigarettes. And I remember those in my community when I was a kid. And I said, she's 9 years old, I said, now, what are your critical thinking skills at? Why do you think they will make candy cigarettes for children? I said, think about it and tell me what you think. So they'll smoke cigarettes when they get grown. I said, exactly.
Make them look cool.
Right, exactly. So my point is, we always have to go beneath the surface. We always have to have our critical thinking skills hat on, because this society is designed to harm us. And we can never forget that. That is the core and the root of this foundation. And to forget that and think, you know, I just live free and happy, that's fine. Be free and happy. But never forget that, because it's real and it's true. And so we must go beneath the surface. Why didn't you get any books that taught you about the real history of the United States? We have to go beneath the surface on everything.
Alphonse, go ahead.
I think she kind of touched base about the educational part of not just saying stuff and walk away without actions. It's more about showing up, as I keep hearing that word, and which is something that defines this idea when I don't think about breaking barriers, is you have a wall or a big door in front of you. But that door is just an illusion. You can break that door and go to the other side. But you have to get the risk. So the work that I think we are doing, we are taking the risk to go through that door. Even we know that there are people that's going to put a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of money to prevent us to do it. We just need to remember one thing. Showing up, we already break that door.
Thank you, Alphonse. Yes, Dean. You wanted to add something?
Did I?
No.
Oh, I might have, but the moment passed.
That's
I
okay.
might have, oh, you know, I guess it was, and it's not what Alphonse was talking about, so sorry, this is going to be a jump cut. I'm just,
Okay.
But if you're writing down, or if we're offering ideas to build on, you know, there's something when you were talking that kept coming into my mind, and it was, it wasn't just you, Chantel, but the continent of Africa as the original womb, as the original mother. And so that's an idea, not a complete sentence, but that's an
Of humanity.
literally.
If things don't get
You're
better
right.
there, I don't think it will be even a good chance for, if the womb is not
Yeah.
then what's the
Yes.
gonna be?
The womb is not healthy, what
Yes,
manifests out
what
of
comes
it.
out of it is
Yeah.
so even if our
Absolutely.
leaders
There
still
we
have
go.
the wrong mentality, then the product we do out here is gonna
There we
be
go.
wasted.
Yeah, because I mean, as long as Africa is divided, how do we expect Africans to unite if ever like
Or the
Africa as
diaspora.
the mother, you know,
Or-
like
or-
being so divided?
Yes.
Like I mean, it's definitely not going to happen, you know. But I in conclusion, I wish you see such platforms that they should definitely continue and have more and more people actually being involved. You know, I remember that back in 2019, I attended a talk show whereby you're one of the panelists, and it was about education, the education system here in Aurora. I wish if there could be another talk show, something like that, but particularly discuss on this matter, you know, because it actually enlightens everyone, you know, because it gives everyone the voice to speak. Whereas, like, I mean, like Dr. Malcolm mentioned, a very critical point to say now the new system says, let's fund African immigrants. And I mean, if I'm an African American also, I would also be offended, you know what I mean, to say now they found another way of actually getting back at me using my own people. So such platforms, I really feel like it is needed. So maybe that's something that we just have to consider, having just a talk show and let's have all the community involved in that.
We can have it. Let's talk about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Let's talk about it.
to add on to what he's saying, that what you said, I was like, oh, I never realized that they now moving from them and they trying to make us against, you know, our own kind. It never. And now us as as immigrants, we don't see it that way. We're like, oh, they're missing opportunities. Why aren't they not jumping at these opportunities?
They're not being given those opportunities.
Yes. So it's one of the things, and also it's just for today. But I have questions. I have questions as to, you know, in also in South Africa, during apartheid, we had a word like kaffers. We don't use that word. We don't use it against each other. We just don't. But here in America, black people, they use nigger. It's okay
Not all.
for each other to call.
Not all.
No?
I never use that word.
Okay.
Okay,
I never
so
use that
it's
word.
one of the things that I was like, why are they still using it in their music? You mentioned something that if they rapping good, no one's like, okay, we're
No
gonna
one is
pay for
promoting
this.
it, yeah.
Yes, you know, but if they start talking about the culture that makes us look bad, it's like, okay, yes. So I want, how do we break? It's those questions that I have. So this meeting
You're
is not
asking
enough.
all the right questions.
Yeah.
Dr.
I would
Malcolm.
like to have. I would like to have more.
Just the last one.
Yeah.
Talk about the Benjamin.
And that one, probably where we get our information is key. You know, like sometimes they frame the wrong things and they think that's the whole culture. But I guess to just add on to your, but one of the things I wanted to also suggest is in my country or my culture we have two sayings. One of it is konoweka tokalinda kusabana taka.
He's speaking in tongues.
The young child, if you're gonna put him on your back or carry, don't let them get messed up with dirt. So that's one.
Okay.
And the other one is akachama mabira bokagorora kamenyeka. If a plant, a tree is growing and the branch went a certain way, if you try to bring it at a later stage, it might snap. So I've always emphasized on the youth because I feel like there's so many organizations in every school, even here in local. And one of them, MSU, they have an African American group and African ASU, Student Union. And they have another one, a separate one, I forgot the name. And they have different meetings. Now, if we let that go on, even in our jobs, we're going to get there and we still have that conflict. So how can we involve, because they get funded, you know, by the schools. They have similar agendas. How can we have a black student community here in Denver or Colorado or in the United States? Now, I personally know somebody who's trying to bridge that gap. I went to school with him, and he's trying to bring different schools. But I don't see it here. So that's one of my suggestions. How can we get, even going to high school, let's recognize these guys who have done enough work on their graduations so that they share instead of fighting when they leave school.
His daughter's doing it right now in her school.
Yeah.
That's one of my suggestions.
But he said it. It's Pan-Africanism.
Alphonse, a second. Just a second, Alphonse.
It's Pan-Africanism. we have to talk to these young people who are in middle school and high school about Pan-Africanism, so they won't come up being separated like we are.
Right.
That's where it begins.
You know, to my daughter Miriam, she goes to Colorado Early College, and being raised in the African leadership group, she went there, and she's all about black people actually. And the school, they don't have a platform to bring the black people. She created, started an Afro student association. Until now, the school doesn't recognize it.
Right, that's right.
But she's not taking no for an answer. They're getting together 2 days a week and tutoring program, and they are helping the other kids. Now the Hispanic kids join. It's a huge organization now. So she organized a fair. She invited Dr. Malcolm over there as a speaker. She invited the Daniel Foundation to talk to them about scholarship. It's a big. So they put together a movie night for Wakanda when they come out, where all of them. So they rented an entire theater with over like 250. So to both of you point, if she was not involved and raised in this platform, she wouldn't be able to go on to have that idea.
And the village that's around her that's supporting her.
Yes.
Well, that's the platform he's talking about.
Yes, the village. that's-
So I think one of the thing that just gave me an idea when you talk, wouldn't it be beautiful to have one event where we have 250 African immigrants, 250 black people from the community, all together in a one room,
We can do it with Pan-African World Cup.
all together in a one room.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, Alphonse, I know you've been dying to speak. Go ahead. Go ahead, Alphonse. You're missing all the fun here, by the way. Go ahead.
Yeah, but you brought up exactly what is about to bring about the Miriam Initiative. We not only congregating most of our students from Africa, but also Spanish population. And believe it or not, the school is opposing it because they did not have fun and they were not ready to understand that kind of mentality. Because for them, it was just kids who cannot advocate for themselves. Speaking about the MSU problem, about many organizations sharing the same things, I will invite the brother who brought that up to go on campus. He will witness something. It is the same students who are in the Black American Association. It is the same students who are in the African Student Union, and it is the same students who are in that's the last one that was created. I was student on that campus, and I also taught on that campus. The thing is, there are money available for minorities, but they don't always give it up. Therefore, the students find a way to create multiple organizations to run their desired activities. But the idea behind it is they can find a way to work around the system. They are not survived. I can speak for MSU Student Association and Student Union. They are not survived. They are the same students going to CU, to CCA, and to MSU. So just to put it out there. But they are not survived. It was just a way for them to get funded and to have any project that each of those three organizations wanted to run to get it going. So yeah, just to put it out there.
All right, thank you. We are at our 2 hours mark, and I want to be respectful of all of your times. So, but your point, yes.
No, you mentioned about the nigger thing. So they're white niggers too. And I said that to say, understand what the definition of the word nigger means. It does not just mean ignorance. As we were taught, the word nigger means ignorance. So you have white ignorant people, it's like you have black ignorant people. That's what a nigger is. But a real definition of a nigger is a person who allows someone else to tell them who they are and what they should be doing when they know what they should be doing.
Yep.
So we call the police officer the real nigger, because he know what he should be doing, but he allows someone else to tell him what he should be doing. He know what he should be doing. That's the real nigger.
It's a whole education. It's a whole.
And the whole thing with Ebonics, white folks speak Ebonics too. Go down south,
Yeah, you're right.
white folks and black folks speak the same in the South. They both speak Ebonics in the South. So,
And sometimes their own unique language. You can go to West Virginia, Louisiana. You don't know what they're talking
South
about.
Carolina, the
But,
Geechee Gullah
yeah,
people.
you don't know what they're talking about. But there's something I wanted to just to impart about the N-word. I don't even say it. And so, but I'm speaking only for myself. But I know there are other black people like me in the family, in my family. My parents never, ever used the N-word. And none of my siblings do. And so, again, it depends. You were talking about perhaps in rap and hip-hop music. Not all rappers or hip-hop artists use the N-word either. And so it's more complex than, well, why do Black Americans use the N-word? Well, some do and some don't. And the reasons for using it or the reasons for not using it are probably very varied, very different. But it's not a universal.
So I would like for us to, just to talk about next step now, what's going to happen. So I created a group text message. I really would like for us to continue the dialogue over there, ideas, things, just share it with Chantel. And Chantel going to compose something together. And when she has it ready, so I think I have all of you guys' email, and I'll send it to your email. So for all of us to review, have comment and recommendation and pointers. So hopefully, a few days before November 12th, we have a final draft.
Oh, great.
Final draft. But we really would like to have all of you guys' involvement and participation. So at this point, we cannot invite other people into the conversation, because if you miss this conversation, you wouldn't know where to help and start. So if you will leave here tonight and there's something that came, just put it in that group text that I created. Oh, I forgot to mention. Let's carry on the conversation there into the group text. And she's working on putting something together, and we'll have the final draft. And if we need to meet over Zoom to go over it, we'll meet over Zoom. But I'm excited for November 12th, and I'm excited how we're going to do our part of history.
Just one last thing. If I can have you guys maybe like your name with your cell phone number, like, hey, this is me, because I have everyone's
that's
number,
right.
but I don't know who.
Yeah. So,
WhatsApp would be a good way to communicate. WhatsApp.
WhatsApp. Yes, I am
so
on WhatsApp.
what I'll do is Latoya, are you now on WhatsApp?
Not anymore, but I can.
So yes,
Do we have to get on WhatsApp?
No, we don't.
Can we just text? Can we just
Yeah,
text?
I know, but so we'll keep the group.
Yeah.
I created that group, and I'll add you in that group.
Okay, thank
And all of us are in the group, actually. Stephen, I'll add you on the group, and we'll just carry on the conversation. And I really would like, because I wanted to invite the younger kids here.
Yes.
But let's get perspective from a younger kid and share it, okay? So, but I'm excited about this. So, any last word from anybody before we wrap
So
up?
if it's a good poem, I will publish it on the back of this magazine.
What? It would be a good one.
It's going to be a good one.
It's going to be an epic poem. It's going to be an epic poem.
Oh, it better be good.
So, your last word before you step
Oh.
out. Last word from Latoya. Let me just get last
My
word from.
last word
No
is just
pressure.
thank you. Gratitude. I have so much gratitude for everyone showing up and willing to do this work and willing to be vulnerable and open. That's more than one word, but thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Chilla.
Yeah, thank you for being open and accepting. Just thank you for listening. Thank you.
Okay. Chantel, I'll come to you next. Dr. Malcolm.
Gratefulness, liberation, freedom.
Thank you. Don't let people tell you your story.
Yeah,
You have to love.
that's powerful.
I am so thankful, and I am so full. My first meeting with Papa Ja, it was almost spiritual, and I'll just say it was. And meeting with you all and talking and listening, absolutely, I almost feel like I'm walking on air. It is so uplifting. So thank you. I will use a Lakota word, Pilamaya, and that is thanking the Great Spirit for bringing us here.
Stephen?
Yeah, no, say thank you. I'd say begin with our humanity, begin with listening, and really set a standard to identify each other as one.
Yes.
Webster?
Thank you so much. I mean, I love this. When I see black people coming together, for me, that makes me happy. Yeah.
Professor, you're still black, so what do you
Well, thank you all for allowing me to speak. Because for you, I said, because if it was just for him, he would let me. Yeah. My brother from another mother.
So, Chantal?
I have a lot of work to do, but every time that I write, I don't only write from my own experiences. So I'm listening to each and every one of you, and I'm so glad that this is not just going to be my work, but it's going to be for everyone's work. Everyone's going to have some, and you'll hear it. So I'm hoping that everyone likes it, and thank you. I feel healed already, because I couldn't even talk about it without crying about it. Today I didn't drop it, yeah, so that's good. So thank you so much for healing. Thank you.
The first one was great. So
I am proud.
It was good.
I am extremely proud. Proud. And we started this, we didn't even know where we were going with this, but to see and to our group, we've been extremely persistent.
Well, when we were in our leadership cohort, and they said that we have a project that we had to create, that was the first thing that came to my mind. Was this breaking barriers, building
And
bridges.
see where we are now.
I'm asking her, does she have a poem she want to share with us right now?
Oh, no.
One that you've written already.
Well, one day.
So I put a video of her, of one of her poems. Yeah,
I
so
didn't hear it, but
yeah.
I heard you in person, actually.
You did?
At the event.
At the-
Oh, yeah, he was there. That day.
So, thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And let's keep continue the conversation in the group. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for.
No more.